Boy. What is going on, everybody, and welcome into Byerly Studios. Now, it's been a while since I've been out here in the workshop. If anything else, all I've been doing is just shoving more and more stuff into this space, which is supposed to be like a woodworking slash crafting area, which is just outdoors, apart from my main studio inside the house. But it has literally just became straight up storage. So I've been shipping a lot larger pieces of art and commissions, which means I do need more like packaging materials and things like that. So I have all my friends and family like giving me all these like foam blocks and boxes and packaging, like plastic bubble wrap. And where does it end up? It ends up out here. So I have like boxes and boxes of like packaging material just everywhere. On top of that, I have all my tools and everything else just laying all over the place. I've really just got to get down to the nitty gritty and organize this space. Working on the L-shaped workbench here in the workshop slash outdoor art studio. And things have kind of transformed a little bit as far as my overall plans. Me and my wife have also been discussing of maybe eventually building a carport slash building beside our house, which would allow me to have an air-conditioned like space slash unit to really like move all of my art into not just this portion in the workbench and everything, but also all my interior like crafting area as well. So my actual studio shelving, my desk, my drafting table, all that stuff would be moved out there, and I would have like two different stations. So I'd have like this in one corner, which would be more for like YouTube lives and things like that, and then I would have more like a desk version of it across the room. So we'll see how that goes, but as of right now, I still plan to build out this area as if I'm going to use it for art and crafting and woodworking and things like that. So I left you at the end of the last version or part of this series of us working on the right-hand side. I will enter a B-roll into this video right now, but just be aware I did have to do some cleaning to get that ready to go. As you can see, we did get the bottom shelves all put in a line and ready to go. Those are not tacked down quite yet. However, the top countertop, as you can see, is in that L shape. And we do also have no support in the front corner, right? We've made that a floating front corner shelf so that way we can get a broom under there. We can store stuff under there if we want to. More than anything, it is visible and it feels nice and open. But the top countertop, which is 3/4 inch sanded plywood, is indeed attached via the framing from below. So I did pocket holes in those 2x4 supports, and we went ahead and tapped those from the bottom with some Craig screws. You just want to make sure you include enough Craig screws in the supports and holding that countertop down so that it doesn't get any kind of warping or buckling if your space is not humidity controlled. Because plywood has a tendency to warp and buckle, and you just don't want to have put so much time and effort and money into something, even if it is just a piece of plywood, and then you have to redo it again later. So I put an ample amount of screws in there, and it is held down pretty tight overall. I did sit like heavy things on top of it, so that way I could get it really anchored down. It wasn't shifting, wasn't moving around, because after all, it's just me out here building all this by myself. Now today in the studio, we are going to be working on this side. Now we've already done that side, and at the end of that video is like to be continued months later. We're going to be working on this side. Now, some notes here. Remember, I've already got the bottom shelving done already, and we're going to be working into the top countertop. Now, originally I was going to do a drop down, so I was going to come over here. I was going to do a drop down right here and then go horizontally so that my workbench didn't go above the window seam. I decided if I do workshops or lives out here, eventually I'm going to have so much lighting out here that I'm going to black out the windows anyways. So I'll block these in. They'll be visible from the outside, but I'm going to block these in so that this is just like straight up wall. I'll have a window over there maybe, but this is just me straight up wall. So when I get done in the long run, this will just look like one single wall all the way across. Cool. I was going to do a drop down from here all the way down, and I was going to do like a 3-inch drop to go across because I didn't want this part of the countertop to be above the window sill, so that way I could get to the clips to open the window, right? I mentioned that, I think, in the very first video of the design video of this series, But I decided not to do that. I went ahead and make it simplistic. We're going to go all the way across. Now, you'll notice that this is a lot more narrow, and I did that for a particular reason. I expected this to be on the exterior wall. So even if I move this into a work building later, this will always be on the back wall. So this will be the corner, the back wall. We'll see about the other side. Maybe that won't be the corner anymore, like up against the wall. It could be open to open air. But this side will always be against the wall. And to do that, I decided to make this part here much more low profile, so that way I had more room inside the small workshop slash area. I have more space to stand and move around. And if it's just me, then I have more space. If I have another person in here with me, it gets so cramped, and I just don't want to have to deal with that. So here, because it's also beside the door, I went ahead and made it a lot more narrow. It's like maybe 18 inches in depth compared to the 25 inches that this space is. So it's substantially more shallow. I also did not incorporate a lower shelf on this. I just thought it would look really cool just to have the back frame against the back of it. I could maybe apply some some hanging hardware below this shelf right here. So I have like little knickknacks and things, maybe like some packaging material or something like that. I may revisit that in another video later on in the series, because this is an ongoing evolution, right? So you get to start at the very beginning of this series, enjoy, kick back, sip a cup of coffee, and watch hours of content, right? That's my goal. Do I ramble sometimes? Of course I ramble. But the whole point is just to have fun creating and building, right? Yes. So I have some scrap material here. Let's go ahead and get this out of the space. And then that way we can get this last piece of plywood cut. So I have been keeping just scrap pieces of plywood on top of here. That way I just have a little bit of space on this side of the workbench to use. But like I said, it's at the point now where it's time to go ahead and lock things in. Now, I went to Lowe's this time and I purchased I need some coffee. Oh, there we go. So let's talk about pricing, right? So I'm not going to get into too much nitty gritty about the pricing of lumber, but I'm just going to say it's crazy. It's outrageous. So I went and bought some 2x4 pressure treated lumber boards the other day just for some swing set and a play set, and $4 or $5 for one 8-foot board. Like that's ridiculous, man. I'm sorry, dude. So originally I was paying $40 for a sheet of 3/4 inch sanded plywood. And so I've done some other projects with it. Eventually went up to $60, and I was buying all my lumber from Home Depot. Anyways, this time I went to Lowe's, and I was already there. I had my truck unloaded, so I bought it there, and it was a lot more pricey than I would have liked to see. But it's my last piece of plywood out here. I need to get it done so I can get the finishing boards across the front, and then we can get into the staining part of the process, and then we can get into like a polyurethane clear coat to protect it, and then I can really organize this space to where I can really get some stuff done. One of the biggest projects I have coming up is I'm going to be working on a VW engine, so I'll be doing some paint stuff with that. Yes, painting a VW engine block is part of art and painting and crafting, so of course I'm going to include it here, right? Right. So it came a long way. So I paid more than I really had planned to, and we're going to go ahead and cut this board. So the length of this is pretty simplistic overall, right? So if I measure from end to end here, we have exactly 79 inches. Okay, 79 inches will be to the end of the board. So that's not even barely like 7 feet, right? So I'm going to have a little bit of board overhang. And then over here at the very back, and then this portion over here is going to be a little bit different. So see, I'm going to have a 4-foot board here. So that will be the 4-foot section, right? So I'm going to use the entire length of the board to get to even remotely halfway, but it's not halfway. Now you got to remember that it's not attached right now. I'm going to move this. So remember that this is designed to completely come apart, right? That's why I built a double middle beam here. And my goal here is that I can easily just remove these, pull it apart, and I can move it into a new location or something like that, right? So this is designed to come apart, which means that the seam for the overall countertop has to be in the very middle. But I could always do that later. So I could also make it where this middle section comes apart, so I can make that the joining piece between the two sections, right? So I might do that as well. So maybe I'll pocket screw some holes into one smooth section, because otherwise I'll have a splice here, and a splice here where that comes apart. I might just do 2 splices here and make one center piece right here. But that'll be with the scrap wood that I have left over, okay? So we'll go ahead. So what that means is that I need to move this center support closer to the center, because I just wanted to have that extra support where the two pieces come apart. So what I'll do is I'll put it right there, for instance. I'm going to move this one in just slightly as well. And then also means that whatever overhang I have, I need to have a board between the two sections, right? So there needs to be a board between the two splice points of the plywood so I don't get any kind of buckling or warping at the corners or the seams, okay? Because if your plywood pulls apart, it's probably going to pull apart at the ends before it pulls apart in the middle, normally, okay? So there's our measurements. We're going to go with a 79 and then the full 4-foot width. All right, guys, so we'll go ahead and get this on these two sawbucks here. You'll notice these sawbucks are absolute pure steel. My dad used to be a welder. And boy, he welded up these bad mamma jammas. They are solid. Solid. Look how clean that board is. Now, like I said, I paid more for this board than I had any of the others. But it's going to be nice. I'm going to give them all light sanding when I get all of the countertops on, or the workbench tops on. And then make sure they're absolutely perfect level with each other. And then we'll stain it and clear coat it. And it'll look really nice. So it almost hurts to cut something this nice, right? Like butter. I like it. Now, one thing that I did do is I laid that spare board down flat inside on a shelf, and I'm gonna put stuff on top of it in case I don't use it anytime soon. It won't warp because I have it laying flat and not laying vertical. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and bring in the board. All right, so now one thing I need to do is I need to make sure that this section here that's coming off that workbench right here, I need to make sure that that section is straight so that way I can get a straight edge right here. So I have the backs and the corners shimmed still against the existing 2x4s, studs. So I want to make sure that it's gaped properly, so that way I can get a straight corner and that's not off. Well, if we're going to do it, might as well do it right, you know what I mean? Once I get this angled the way I need to, then I'll mark off underneath the cutout for this section. I might even use this existing piece of wood for the countertop for the island that I'm going to build. So that'll be pretty cool. Okay, so I broke a little bit of a sweat, and the reason for which is because this shelving unit over here, this support system that I built out of 2x4s is so narrow, and it doesn't have the same overall integral structure as the rest of the bench. It has more give and take, so I can take the unit and I can move it, shimmy it back and forth because it's not stoutened up yet. I may eventually put another shelving unit underneath it to stout, like make it stronger, or maybe like a block here and attach it to the wall. But I'm not there yet. So I did tack it in the corner here. And then I checked for squareness on my board. Right? Check for squareness. I tacked it here. I tacked it here with 2 toenail screws from below. This one was in the corner. I regret that. I should have toenailed it instead. But I'll fix that with when I do polyurethane. So you won't even see that hole. And then I went ahead and straightened it up and tacked it in the corner. Verified. And then I tacked it up there. So right now I have a perfect 90-degree corner into the corner of the wall with this unit fully attached, okay? So it is absolute perfect. It's all the way up here to the corner. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and mark our hole, our lines to cut the corner out. And then we can go ahead and anchor this permanently, okay? We're going to use... originally, I used Kreg pocket screws, and I screwed, actually drilled holes in the framing on the other side if you want to do it that next level way. Or you could just toenail it because none of the screws will be visible anyways when everything is done. But you could do it either way. If you want to hide the screws, you could. If you want to have them visible, you can do that easier. It's a lot easier, honestly. It's a lot faster just to throw those screws in and be done with it. The most important thing is just make sure you give it as much structural integrity as you can. Once this is cut out, then we'll cut out that small segment in the middle between the two types of board there, and then we will be all done with the countertops. What do you think? All right, so all I'm going to do is just take my pencil from below And I'm just going to take it and I'm going to mark off where our cut line needs to be. And then I'll mark that with a straight edge all the way into the corner. Because remember, I left about 1 inch to 1 inch over, so that way I could put some lighting in if I wanted to. All right, so I'll go ahead and unhook all those screws since we have our marked lines. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and carry it outside. All right, we'll just go ahead and lay this down here. Lines up. There's our lines there. Now I don't want to destroy the wood, okay? So I don't want to destroy this segment here. So what I'll do is when I cut this line, I'll move it over to the saw butt so it gives us relief. That way it doesn't bind that too much because I want to reuse that wood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shimmy it back and forth. I'm going to get this portion here just squared up right there to the corner, just like that. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and anchor that with my screws. Now for now I'm just using just a few Phillips head wood screws, and I'll be replacing these here in the near future. So just because I don't plan on moving it again anytime soon, once I've got it on here, make sure it's flush, because there's going to be a piece of wood that goes across this strip right here. We'll go ahead and anchor it from that side, because if I go, I'm just going to toenail these. Alright guys, so just like that, this bad boy is about done. Now I'll probably go into maybe a voiceover for this side. That's that little middle piece between the two. I'll probably do a little bit of cleanup work to make sure that just everything lines up perfectly. But like I said, I just got a new router, so I hope to do a little bit of routing along the edges, so that way it just keeps a nice, really super clean, neat and tidy edge before I come in with the faceboard. Because I'll probably put a large hanging faceboard that comes down, because I wanted there to be a gap between the countertop, the spacers, any support beams, and then a little bit over. And it's going to allow me to possibly put some LEDs that shine down, and so like underneath the counter would have like a glow effect, right? But overall, I'm really happy with how it's turned out. You can tell this is a lot better quality wood than what I've been getting for the other side. Again, we're going to sand this with an orbital sander before we go into any staining process. So just be aware that we're going to get to that here shortly soon in a video coming up in this playlist. If you haven't had the opportunity to go back in time and see any of the other versions or parts of this playlist, it's been an ongoing series on my YouTube channel for quite a long time, and I really do hope you guys enjoy the process of just creating something from scratch. Obviously I take breaks in between some of these videos, but they're still out there for you to enjoy. Up next, we're going to go into a voiceover now, and I'm going to go ahead and put this middle section in here. And then in a separate video, I think we'll break out the router, clean up the edges a little bit along the interior of the horseshoe-shaped bench, and then we will get some nice face boards to go along the interior. It's going to dress everything up quite a bit, and then maybe we'll see where we go from there. I might either roll into the staining video, so where we stain this a nice like a tavern type of look, or possibly maybe building the island. I think we'll wait on the island at least for a little bit longer because I got this big old sawbucks that I usually put in the middle of the studio here. But we'll see where it takes us. I do like this being thinner than the rest of it. But we'll see how it goes. I know that eventually maybe I'll build something on the other side, like a corner nook area where I would specifically do like scroll work, things like that. So I might get me like a large 22-inch scroll saw to do some like intarsia or something like that type of art. So we'll see where it takes us. But otherwise, I'm really happy where we are at this stage in the process. I may jump into that in a different day, but it'll be in this video. So sit back and enjoy, guys, as we go ahead and go into a voiceover here. I'll kind of rant and ramble a little bit as we get this last piece of countertop cut out here. Cool? Let's get to it, guys. Just like that, in between the two segments, right? So again, it's going to break apart in the middle and separate. So eventually there will have to be a middle seam here. What I'm really thinking about doing is, because the wood grain is different between the different segments, it kind of bothers me a little bit. I could have laid the plywood down so that this piece would have been the absolute center of this back portion, but then I would have seams on both sides as the horseshoe goes around. So no matter what I did, I was going to have seams somewhere. It's going to have to happen. So what I think I might do is, because I did the stainless steel countertop on the right-hand side, and it looks absolutely great, and it's going to look even better when I get everything stained and like darkened out. So that super shiny surface is going to look great. I may eventually go ahead and at some point have somebody fashion me a stainless steel section just for this middle part that can be unbolted and removed. That way, when you walk into, like, say, the workshop or whatnot, you see this really nice horseshoe stained workbench, but then it is, of course, going to be polyurethane, so it's going to have like a glaze coating. It's going to look really glossy. It's going to have all my tools arranged on it. But then you see this really nice stainless steel countertop on the left-hand side, and then, oh, wow, well, this matches it too. So it just looks like it's really one piece, one design. But for today, I'm just going to pop in a piece of plywood, and we're just going to call it a day for this portion of the build. And I may revisit this a little bit later on down the road. But for now, I'm going to have two different seams here, and that's okay. If I want to remove this, I'll just pop this piece off and then go about moving the workbench and then just reseat this back onto it the same way. But I do want a really tight fit, so I've already gone ahead and cut this side here. I've cut this side down, but I do need to go ahead and sand it down a little bit so I just get a really nice tight fit between these two seams, okay? Now what that means is I could go ahead and lay it down like this, and I could use my sand block, and I can go ahead and just sand it down a little bit at a time until it fits in there. Or I could just go ahead and use my router a little bit of it off, and then if there's a little bit of a gap, that's okay. But I want it to be relatively tight in all. And then what we'll do is we'll kind of strip this front portion to make sure it's all absolutely straight all the way across. And then we'll go ahead and anchor this down as well. So it's pretty simplistic overall. I can sand it down or I can router the edge off, but either way we go about it, just a little bit of time invested, and then we get a nice good fit. Again, when you go into the glamour shots here in a minute of just the countertop finished up, just be aware that the seam is visible. The wood grain is different. It is what it is. I may visit that again in the future and kind of clean that up again with a stainless steel insert for the counter on this portion between the two sections of the horseshoe workbench. Cool? So let me go ahead and get the router out. Let me get everything gauged up. We'll go ahead and router the edge of that, and then we'll get this piece anchored down. Alright, and just like that, we have the piece of wood in position. I'll have to do a little bit of trimming just on the front right here just to get a nice smooth transition between the 3 pieces of plywood. And like I said, later on down the road, I very likely will remove this completely. So this is kind of just temporary. And I think I'm going to put a stainless steel insert in just this one little square segment. So I'll probably just buy, I was thinking about actually having somebody fabricate me one with like a rollover lip like the actual stainless steel countertop has on the other side. But what I might do is I might just leave that wooden baseboard all the way across, nice and smooth and seamless, except for just the middle right there. And what I might do is I might just go ahead and put a piece of stainless steel countertop, maybe bought from my Home Depot or Lowe's, on a piece of plywood that's been shaven down or planed down, and I might just put it just one little segment here, and there'll be just a nice breakup between the stained boards all the way across the horseshoe shape. So I think it's gonna be pretty good. I cut a little bit too much off that rear corner, but I don't think it's really gonna be worth time wasting a piece of wood just to recut it again. I made a mistake and I let the router get out of control on that corner, so I'm not really stressing over it. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and clean up this edge here, and I'll catch you in the next video where we'll be putting the actual front faceboard on the entire workbench, which is really going to dress it up. So those faceboards will go across both the top and the bottom shelving units, and will also go across the I-beams in the very middle. And those will be able to be removed in the future if I ever want to. Otherwise, guys, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I just anchor this real quick. All honesty, originally I was using a Craig screws on that side, and it works out pretty good. You know, you just pre-drill the holes, and then you sink your screws in there, and there's preset, so the screws are just kind of like hidden away. Whereas on this side, I just went ahead and toe nailed them into the 2x4 below, which is actually just a lot faster, a lot easier. You just got to get your angle right, and then that way you can get just nice torquing down of the actual countertop into those supports, so you don't get any kind of warping on the corners. So we will have a support here and a support here, and we'll have one in the middle, which will be ripped down, which will be ripped down the center. And then again, those will stay because we'll use those again in the future if I do the stainless steel insert. So what I'm going to do now, guys, I'm just going to grab some wood screws and drill, and I'm going to go ahead and toe nail this into place. That way it can get anchored, and then we'll go ahead and clean up this edge. I'll probably wait and do the cleanup on the edge portion in the next video when we start to put the faceboards on the front of the workbench to really dress it up. Alright, let's get some screws in this bad boy and let's get it finalized. What's going on? Alright, so this is the end of the video. So, in this content, we have put the countertops on, or at least finished it. Remember, in the previous video, we kind of did a to be continued where we had I ran out of plywood, I didn't have any more. And again, it had been months before I touched this project since. So, it's good to finally get that plywood and get it applied. As you can see, I just toe nailed this side in. Again, as I stated earlier in the video, and probably the video before that, I did put a Craig screw system in on this side. So I used the Craig gauge, I pre-drilled the holes, and then I used Craig screws on this side. It's pretty cool. All the screws are pretty hidden, as you can see with the little B-clip there. But as for this side, it's all going to be hidden away when I get done. So I went ahead and just toe nailed those screws in from the bottom. And as long as you get enough of them across the whole countertop, you don't have to worry about that pulling or buckling if you do get high humidity in your workspace. Now, one thing that you'll notice is I'm just a backyard builder, right? So sometimes my measurements are off. That's going to happen. You know, sometimes I'm just off on my measurements. They ain't perfect. My cuts aren't perfect because I'm using a handsaw, whatever. It ain't no big deal. Now, let's just take some notes about what we've went over so far. So, again, we cut out both sides. Now that I have both sides applied, I did come back and I measured the depth of the countertop all the way around the horseshoe. So it's roughly 25 inches in depth all the way around. This side over here is 16 inches in depth because it's a much more narrow bench compared to this one. It does have a little bit of give to it. So I do get a little bit of shimming on the lower 2x4 support. So I probably will come in later and I'll probably add another shelf below that one maybe something very thin to put some bends across. Maybe, we'll see. And that would also kind of true up that corner, so that way the plywood and that upper support's not doing all of the support. So that way if I were to put something heavy on it, like an engine mount or a vise or something, it doesn't torque the top of the bench inward or outward, because that lower portion is not as secured as the top. So I might come back in later and brace it. What I could do is also I could maybe eventually anchor the 2x4 support at the bottom to the floor. I don't really want to drill into the little subfloor of my shed here. If I do get a slab poured one day for a work building, I may like countersink some bolts into it that way, maybe shotgun some bolts into it. But that'll be another project, another day. I'm not worried about it today. I did come back, again, measured all the way around, and I also very much trued up the front face of the entire workbench. So it is a perfectly straight line from corner to corner, and that's going to allow us to come in easily and put the face board on the entire horseshoe. That will be the next video in this project series, where I'm going to come in, I'm going to apply the horseshoe cleanup board around the outside edges. I don't know if I'm going to put it along the bottom or not yet. I very likely will, and I might even come back and put it across the middle beam right here also, dress that up a little bit. It makes the workbench feel really like, not really thick, but finished out and more professional grade than just what 2x4 is just visible everywhere it can give you, right? I don't know what size or depth of board I want yet, but I do eventually plan to maybe put some LEDs under there. So we'll kind of see where that takes us along the way. I may incorporate some power outlets on there as well, but I'll probably keep my power outlets on the very back side of the actual workspace itself. I don't know if I'm going to put power in this shed or not. We'll kind of see how it goes, but I am going to go ahead and build out the workbench so that it is ready for power. So what do we have coming up over the next few months or so in this work build? I do have to get the spray paint that I have in this tote on the bottom shelf. You can see it in a B-clip there. I need to get that up on the wall. So I will build a spray paint holder that will kind of bolt to the wall in sectional pieces. That way I can just slide my spray paints in a nice rack against the wall. But I'll also be able to unhook that and move it around. Again, everything I build by hand, I want it to be portable, I want it to be easily moved. If I move into a new house, all this stuff goes with me. I'm leaving an empty shed behind, right? This is my stuff. I'm taking it with me. I'm not leaving it behind. I will also maybe consider putting a flashing or like a drop barrier on the back of the workbench. It would be a small strip of wood, like a quarter molding or something, that would just keep like piston rods or bolts or something from like flying out of my hand and rolling down and back behind the workbench. Because it's open concept, it's not hard to get to stuff, but I still don't want to have to risk that. I'm debating whether or not I want to do that. I'll probably do that if I get the workbench finished out and I feel like it's not going to like deteriorate the look of it very much. I may come back in and add that later. Either way, that's super easy. We would just use some finishing nails to kind of like tack that into place, and it would be super simplistic, and it would be stained to match the workbench, so you really wouldn't notice it a whole lot. But I want to make sure that when I get it all finished out, it does look good, right? Another big thing that I would like to do is I would like to drill at least maybe 4 portholes in maybe like the corners, maybe, and I would like to go ahead and install a PVC pipe channel along and underneath the workbench to attach a vac hose to. So I would put like a stationary shop vac in like on my shelf down there. Maybe put a sound barrier around it. Maybe put it where I can easily like pull it out, clean it out if I need to. I'll probably put it on the right-hand side. That way, if I do put some equipment outside, I can do some vacuuming in cars and things like that when I put that lean-to across the back of the shed eventually. But that way, I can just take the portable hose with me, and I can easily just pop it in, hook it to my equipment, or like lay it or have something that holds it in a position that would shop vac everything that I create as far as dust particles immediately. I've seen some other builds like that, but it's going to be my videos, my content, so I'm going to go ahead and document that as well. So we'll probably cover that in the future as well. So here in the next a few months or so, we have the finishing board across the front. We have the maybe a shop vac PVC pipe system, and then we also I plan to maybe potentially very soon build a paint rack system for my spray paint cans. So we'll do that as well. And don't forget, we will also be building that island that goes in the middle of the workshop, and that will be on casters. I almost have everything that I need to do that project just from the scraps from this horse-shaped workbench, because I'm not making the island super big. It allows me to really just move it around wherever I want. And it's not like I can't move that one off to the corner somewhere, use it as a station for something, and then build a bigger one later, right? It's going to be very simplistic, and it's going to be 2x4s as well. So we'll cross that bridge. So we got a few videos coming up in this series, guys. If you haven't liked and subscribed, where are you at? What are you doing? You don't have to like art or paintings and stuff like that to enjoy this playlist. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, guys. Awesome content coming up in the near future, and we're ever growing. It's just like a snowballing effect. I'm starting to build up in this area, and as I finish out the workbench, I'm going to start to put out some bigger tools in here, and we'll start to do some actual woodworking. So looking forward to that. Otherwise, guys, I appreciate you hanging with me, guys. If you haven't seen the rest of the playlist, make sure you go to my homepage. It's right there waiting for you. I will catch you guys on the next awesome video from Byerly Studios.